All right, let's dive into another deep dive. Today, we're all about mastering English. We'll be dissecting Learn English Fast and Easy.
Oh, interesting.
But we're not just gonna, rehash the basics.
Yeah.
We're going for those aha moments, to really level up your skills,
Right.
no matter where you're starting from. So, they cover the familiar ground, like mnemonics for vocab, like benevolent means Ben loves everyone.
Right, right. But, is that really the most effective approach?
That's a good point. It's cute, but does it actually stick?
Yeah.
You've always said context is king.
Yeah, for sure. Think about it. Instead of just those isolated word tricks,
Yeah.
we should look at how sentences build understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, take that astonished example from the podcast.
Okay.
Instead of just the word itself, imagine you encounter it in a vivid travel blog.
Okay.
Huh? I was astonished by the sheer size of the Grand Canyon.
No.
Pictures don't do it justice. Suddenly you're not just, memorizing, you're feeling the word.
Yeah, you're experiencing it. And that actually leads perfectly into their point about word families, right?
Yes.
So from astonish, you get astonishing views or the astonishment on people's faces.
Exactly.
One word, and then boom, a whole vocabulary web.
And if we think about this in terms of learning styles,
Right.
someone who's visually oriented, for example,
Yeah.
they might benefit from creating like a mind map with astonish at the center.
I love that.
And connected to images and other related words.
So you're taking a simple tip
Yeah,
and turning it into a personalized strategy.
absolutely.
And then they also mentioned the tech tools like Anki and Quizlet,
Yeah.
which use spaced repetition. Have you found those helpful, effective in your own language learning?
Oh, spaced repetition. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But you got to engage actively, It can't just be passively clicking through flashcards.
Yeah. Right. You have to be present.
Yeah. It's about using those words.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even, writing a short story or something.
Oh.
Incorporating those words.
Yeah. So real learning, right?
That's where the real learning happens.
Okay, so we're moving beyond simple memorization to active application. Love that. Now let's tackle grammar. The podcast focuses on the present and past, simple as foundational.
Right.
Why are those so important?
Well, because when you've mastered these tenses, it allows you to, participate in those everyday conversations about your routines and your experiences, your thoughts.
Okay, yeah.
Imagine you're, you're at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Chatting with someone you just met. You can say, I usually start my day with a strong cup of coffee. Present simple.
Right.
Or, yesterday I tried a new blend and it was delicious.
Ooh, that's good.
Past simple.
I see. So it gives you that framework for communication for sure.
Yeah, the basics.
But then they suggest that, once you've got those down, those linking words like although and however and therefore can really add depth. How does that work?
Well, think about expressing a nuanced opinion. You could say, I enjoy watching movies. However, I prefer documentaries. You're using however to contrast your preferences.
Right.
Or, although I'm tired, I'm going to finish this book.
Showing that willpower.
Using although to show, that determination despite the fatigue.
Nice.
They add layers, to your communication.
So they take you beyond simple sentences.
Yeah.
Makes you sound more sophisticated.
Exactly.
And then they also recommend paying attention to how these words are used in real life examples, like in songs, podcasts, articles. It's a form of immersion, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're absorbing those grammatical patterns without even realizing it.
Right.
But, we can take this a step further. Instead of just observing, actively try to incorporate those linking words in your own writing.
Oh, okay.
You could start with short paragraphs, maybe a dialogue between two characters, using although and however to create a more nuanced interaction.
So it's about moving from passive observation to active creation.
Exactly.
I love that. And speaking of being active, the podcast goes into listening, specifically what they call active listening.
Oh, yeah.
So what does that involve?
So active listening, that's a skill, It's about focusing on the speaker's message, deciphering meaning from their words, and responding thoughtfully. It's not just hearing the sounds.
Right.
You're actively processing information, making connections, and formulating responses.
It makes sense. It's not enough to just have English washing over you. You really need to engage with it.
Yeah, yeah.
And they suggest, like, pausing and repeating segments to make sure you're really getting it.
Yeah.
Have you found that helpful?
Oh, it's incredibly useful. It trains your ear, to catch those nuances in pronunciation and intonation. Try it with a short clip, from a podcast or a news segment.
Okay.
Listen carefully.
Okay.
Then pause and repeat what you heard and check your comprehension.
Yeah.
It's really helpful.
That's a great tip. And they recommend, that daily exposure to English, even if it's just for a few minutes, right?
Right, right.
Podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube.
The options are pretty much endless these days.
They are.
It's amazing.
The world is your oyster.
But the key here is, you got to choose materials that are slightly above your current level.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to challenge yourself,
Yeah, push those boundaries a little.
You'll be surprised how quickly you improve.
Now, one technique they mentioned that I thought was really cool was shadowing.
Oh, yeah, shadowing.
Can you explain what that is?
So shadowing involves imitating a native speaker's tone and rhythm and intonation.
Okay.
Almost like becoming their echo.
Oh, wow.
You're not just learning the words. You're embodying the way native speakers use them.
That's amazing. Do you have any tips for someone who wants to try shadowing?
Absolutely. Choose a short audio or video clip.
Okay.
With clear, engaging speech, listen to a sentence or a phrase, and then pause it.
Okay.
And try to imitate it, as accurately as possible, matching the speaker's tone and pace and pronunciation.
Yeah.
You can even record yourself,
Oh, cool.
compared to the original.
So it's like vocal training for language learning.
It is, yeah.
Now, speaking of speaking, I mean, that's got to be the most daunting hurdle, wouldn't you say?
It is for a lot of people, yeah. Many learners find speaking the most intimidating aspect.
Yeah.
But remember, even native speakers, they started with simple sounds and sentences.
It's true. It's true. And the podcast recommends starting with something as simple as, like, talking to yourself in English.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
Have you ever tried that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a fantastic way to build fluency and confidence without the pressure of an audience.
Right.
Just describe your actions as you go about your day.
Okay, yeah.
I'm making breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm pouring a glass of juice. I'm getting ready for work. It might feel silly at first.
Sure.
But it gets your mouth moving and your brain thinking in English.
Yeah. It's turning your daily life into an immersion experience.
Exactly.
They also suggest, recording yourself answering common questions.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's your favorite hobby? Or what are your plans for the weekend?
Right.
Why do you think that's beneficial?
Well, because recording yourself allows you to, to identify the areas where you excel and areas where you maybe need a little more practice.
Yeah.
It helps you become more aware of your pronunciation, your grammar, your fluency.
So it's like having your own personal language coach.
It is. It is.
But, I mean, practicing alone can only take you so far. The podcast emphasizes interacting with others.
Of course, yeah. I mean, finding a language partner or joining an English-speaking group, that's invaluable for real-world practice and feedback.
And, I mean, with apps like HelloTalk and Tandem,
oh, yeah.
connecting with native speakers or fellow learners is so easy now.
It's amazing.
You can have, text conversations, voice calls, even video chats.
It's like having a world of language partners right at your fingertips.
It really is. And don't forget about those, local conversation groups.
Yeah, those are great.
Or online communities.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, one thing that can really hold people back is the fear of making mistakes.
Yeah.
But the podcast stresses, that mistakes are actually beneficial.
They are.
Why is that?
Well, because mistakes are actually valuable learning opportunities.
Oh, okay.
They highlight those areas where you need to focus your attention.
Yeah.
And they provide those insights into the intricacies of the language.
So it's about shifting your mindset from, like, the fear of making errors to, like, celebrating every attempt to communicate.
Absolutely, yeah. And embrace those mistakes.
Now let's get into their tips for making English a part of your everyday life. They really emphasize consistency.
They do, yeah.
Even just like 10 minutes a day of reading in English.
Absolutely, yeah. Even small manageable habits.
Yeah.
That's what you want to incorporate into your routine.
And one of their more creative suggestions was, like, labeling household items with sticky notes.
Oh, yeah, that's a fun one.
It's so simple, but so effective.
It is, yeah.
It's a great way to, like, passively absorb vocabulary, right?
Yeah, you're surrounded by those visual reminders, all day long.
Yeah.
And those words gradually, they seep into your subconscious.
It's like turning your home into a language learning playground.
It is.
Now, for music lovers, they suggest, like, listening to and singing along with English songs.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great one.
So fun. And, it helps you internalize that pronunciation and rhythm and intonation.
For sure, yeah. It's about finding those enjoyable ways to integrate English into your daily life.
Exactly. So it's less of a chore and more of a natural part of your routine.
Yeah.
And they also recommend, for movie buffs,
Yeah.
gradually transitioning from watching shows with subtitles in your native language to English subtitles.
Yeah, that's right.
And then eventually no subtitles at all.
Yeah.
So, like, slowly weaning yourself off of those subtitles.
It is, yeah. It's a gradual process.
Until you're, like, comfortably understanding everything.
Absolutely.
And they highlight the benefits of keeping a journal in English.
Oh, yeah. Journaling is great.
What do you think makes that so beneficial?
Well, it's a low-pressure, personal way to practice your writing and explore grammar structures and even, track your progress over time.
Yeah.
You can write about anything you want.
Yeah.
Your day, your thoughts, your dreams. It's your space to experiment.
Yeah, love that.
And express yourself freely.
And they also suggest choosing one activity, whether it's reading or journaling or watching a show in English.
Yeah.
And, like, committing to it for a week. Putting these strategies into action and seeing what works.
It's all about taking those first steps,
And then the next one and the next one.
And before you know it, you've made incredible progress.
It's amazing how far you can come, right?
It is. It's amazing.
Now we've covered a lot, from vocabulary and grammar to listening, speaking.
A lot.
Even the cultural side of English. But I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
We have. But that's the beauty of language. It's a constantly evolving landscape.
Yeah,
with endless paths to explore.
We started with the promise of fast and easy.
Right.
But really, it's about dedication and a personalized approach.
Absolutely. It's about your unique journey.
Exactly. So what are your thoughts so far? What resonates with your learning style and your goals? Take a moment to think about that as we get ready to go even deeper.
Yeah.
In the next part of our exploration.
This deep dive, it shifted our perspective, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, totally.
We started with, a podcast aiming for, like, fast and easy English learning.
Right.
But it's clear there's more to it than that.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just about speed, right? It's about depth and personalization.
And absolutely.
What really struck me is how, like, seemingly simple techniques, like those mnemonics, they can become more sophisticated when you think about, like, different learning styles.
Exactly.
That visual mind map you mentioned earlier, that's a total game changer.
It is. And, it just highlights how important it is to adapt these tips to your own needs and preferences.
For sure.
Like, for example, the podcast, it touched on overcoming language learning plateaus.
Right.
Which can be really frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
But it's totally a natural part of the journey.
For sure.
What they didn't get into were the specific strategies for pushing past those plateaus.
That's a great point. They kind of just glossed over that challenge.
Yeah.
So what are some techniques you found helpful for breaking through those moments, where you feel like you're not making any progress?
Well, one effective approach is to, identify the specific area where you're struggling.
Okay.
Is it vocabulary? Is it grammar rules, speaking?
Right.
You got to pinpoint the challenge.
So get granular with it.
Yeah. Instead of just, feeling stuck, you're analyzing what the actual roadblock is.
Yeah, I love that.
And then you can explore those tailored solutions.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you're hitting a wall with vocab, maybe you need to experiment with different memorization techniques.
Right.
Beyond mnemonics. Maybe flashcards work better for you.
Yeah.
Or creating vocabulary lists based on your interests. Or even, immersing yourself in English content related to those interests.
So it's about being your own, like, language learning detective.
It is, yeah.
What about speaking? I mean, that can be really daunting for a lot of people.
It is, yeah. But there are ways to overcome it. One technique I've found helpful is called chunking.
Chunking, okay.
It's where you break down sentences into smaller, manageable units.
Okay.
You practice those chunks until they just flow naturally.
Yeah.
And then you gradually combine them into those longer, more complex sentences.
So it's like building a sentence, brick by brick, mastering each piece before moving on.
Exactly, yeah.
I imagine this could be helpful for pronunciation, too,
That's
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
By focusing on those individual sounds and syllables within those chunks,
Yeah.
you can refine your pronunciation and develop a more natural rhythm.
So you're kind of tackling both fluency and pronunciation at the same time.
You are, yeah, yeah.
Now, the podcast, they emphasize the importance of consistent practice,
Right.
but they didn't really address how to stay motivated over time.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's where setting realistic goals and celebrating those small victories, that becomes crucial.
So it's not just about, aiming for fluency in a few months,
No.
but, breaking down those big goals into smaller steps.
Yeah, focus on mastering a specific grammar rule, maybe.
Right.
Or expanding your vocabulary in an area that you're interested in.
I love that. And then, when you achieve those milestones, celebrate,
Yeah.
Give yourself a pat on the back.
Absolutely. Acknowledge that progress, reward yourself.
It keeps the momentum going.
It does, yeah.
And don't forget, the power of finding a community.
Oh, yeah, yeah. A language learning community, a partner, someone to share those experiences with.
Like your own personal cheerleading squad.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, one thing the podcast didn't really explore was cultural immersion.
Right.
How important do you think that is?
Oh, cultural immersion, that's incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, it adds a whole new dimension to your learning.
Yeah.
It's not just about understanding the words.
Right.
It's about appreciating the nuances and the customs and the perspectives that shape how people actually communicate.
It's like learning the language of a country isn't just about grammar and vocab. It's about, understanding the heart of its people.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And there are so many ways to immerse yourself. You can watch movies and shows, you can listen to music, you can read books and articles.
The options are endless.
Endless.
And speaking of things that can be both challenging and fascinating, idioms and slang.
Oh, yes. Idioms and slang. Those are they're those quirky expressions that add, that color to the language.
Yeah.
They can be tricky, though, for learners.
Yeah, because they often have, cultural references.
They do, yeah. Yeah. They're often rooted in those cultural references or historical events.
So it's like their own little secret code.
It is, yeah. And the key is to, approach them with curiosity and a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask. If you hear a native speaker use an idiom, ask them what it means. They're usually happy to, share those stories.
Right.
It's like unlocking a secret door.
To a deeper understanding. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to come back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
Which is finding joy in this process.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's crucial,
Why do you think that is?
Because when you actually enjoy what you're doing, you're more likely to stay motivated.
Right.
And make consistent progress.
So it's not about, drilling yourself with grammar rules and vocab lists.
No. Yeah.
It's about finding activities that make you excited to learn.
Exactly.
Whether it's reading a book, watching a show, trying a new recipe.
It's about making language learning, part of your life.
Yeah.
Something you actually look forward to.
And when you have that mindset,
yeah,
it becomes more of an adventure, less of a chore.
Exactly. Now, as we move to the final part of our deep dive, I want you to consider this.
Okay.
How can you bring more joy and passion into your English language learning?
Ooh.
What activities really ignite your curiosity and make you eager to explore the world of English?
Good question.
Keep those thoughts in mind as we delve into this final stage. We'll uncover even more strategies and insights
Love that.
to empower you on your language learning journey.
Wow, we've covered so much ground, vocabulary, grammar, listening, speaking, even the cultural side of things.
We have, haven't we? But it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
Right. It's crazy how much there is to explore.
That's the thing about language. It's constantly evolving, always something new to learn. And, while we've been focused on this Learn English Fast and Easy podcast, this deep dive has really become about your individual journey, hasn't it?
Absolutely. We started out with the promise of quick fixes, but what we've really uncovered is that real mastery takes, dedication and a personalized approach. Remember those plateaus we talked about? Yeah. They're not failures. They're just signs that maybe we need to tweak our strategy a little bit.
Yeah. And that actually ties into something we often forget about, which is The psychology of language learning. It's not just about the mechanics of grammar or memorizing lists of words.
Yeah.
It's about mindset, motivation, self-belief, all of that.
Yeah, so instead of getting discouraged when you hit a roadblock, you got to see it as a chance to analyze your approach.
Exactly. Maybe you need to shake up your study routine, find a new language partner, even explore a different side of English-speaking culture, something to rekindle that spark. This journey, it's as much about self-discovery as it is about language.
You always say that language is like a window into different ways of thinking.
I do, yeah.
So maybe those plateaus, they're a sign that we need to broaden our perspective, not just our vocabulary.
Hmm, I love that. It's about embracing those challenges as opportunities to grow, both linguistically and personally. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought, something to ponder.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the big takeaway here?
What if instead of aiming for, quote unquote, fluency in English,
Yeah.
what if you reframed your goal as becoming a more effective communicator
Okay.
in any language,
Ooh.
including your own?
Wow, that's a really interesting shift.
It is, right. It makes us see language as more than just a tool for transactions,
Yeah.
but as a way to connect with others, to express ourselves authentically, and to really foster understanding.
So it's about being a better communicator, a better listener, more open-minded.
Exactly. And those are qualities, well, those are qualities that go way beyond just language. They're valuable in every part of life.
Such a powerful message to end on. This deep dive into English learning, it's been about so much more than, just grammar and vocabulary. It's been about pushing ourselves, opening our minds to new possibilities, discovering how language connects us all. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.